Welcome to the Rat Race to 5 podcast, where we discuss money, mindset, real estate investing, and ways to achieve financial independence. Whether you are a rookie or a veteran needing new ideas for investing or creating side hustles, you're in the right place. Here to challenge you to think out of the box, your hosts, Felipe Mejia and Diego Corzo.
All right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Rat Race to F5 podcast. Today, I'm very excited because we're going to be breaking down the lessons learned from the speakers, from the 7 speakers or 8 speakers actually at the Rat Race to F5 conference. So it's going to be awesome. We're going to be sharing all of the notes, all of the tips, lessons learned, what we are taking out so that we can take action on from the speakers, from their speeches. And also tell you a little bit about what's going to be going on in the 2022 conference. So in this podcast episode 2, because Felipe currently has coronavirus, he has COVID, he is absent. So I'm going to be doing this interview or this podcast episode with Ward. Ward happens to be working with Rat Race to FI now. He is my chief of staff here in Austin. So it's awesome that we're going to be having this podcast with him. So without further ado, let's go. Well, so guys, for today, we have Ward on the podcast. He's going to be helping me with it because Felipe currently has COVID. He's going through it right now and he's doing much better. He's doing much better now. So we decided to record a podcast with Ward. I'm gonna share a little bit of like who he is and why we're doing this podcast interview like this. But I'm very excited because Ward and I are gonna be sharing the lessons and the notes that some of the people took, that I took, that Ward took at the conference, at the goal setting conference that we had in December for goal setting in 2021, so that people can have the things going into for 2022. So we just had that in December. We're recording this in January now. So it's interesting to see a lot of the people have taken action. And we had incredible speakers. And it was something that in the conference that we didn't know, that in the beginning when we created Rat Race, that we would be able to create a conference for like 120 people, bring amazing speakers, and be able to do something like that. And that couldn't have been done without the help of also Ward, which is the reason why we're both talking about this. Ward has a really cool story, and he'll introduce himself here in a little bit, but he's now working with me and with Rat Race. So it's very exciting. Ward, to tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll go through the notes for the event, just so that the audience gets to know you a little bit.
What's going on? It's so great to be here. It's so great to be a part of the conference. I just want to say to all the speakers, huge thank you before we jump into it, because the absolute value that was dropped was phenomenal. And I'm really looking forward to share it here on this platform. But a little bit about me. I'm 24 years old. I'm originally from Boston, Massachusetts, or a little bit outside in Wellesley. And recently, about 4 months ago, I actually closed on my first triplex out in Western Mass. It has been a great project. Lots of lessons learned. Definitely took a leap. And it's been a fantastic experience. And it's really catapulted me forward. And I'm super excited to see what's to come.
Cool. And I know you have big goals too. So I know that one of your goals is to get to 9 or 10 doors this year, buying potentially some more multifamily, some short-term rentals. So it's excited. And like I mentioned earlier, you're going to be helping us help more people within Rat Race grow. Also, the micro tribes and all this stuff that the people see on our Instagram. So very thankful for that. So Ward, let's get on with the conference stuff. So we had multiple speakers. One of the speakers was Adam Carroll, and he happened to be the first mentor ever that I heard. He happens to be my first mentor, but also one of the first speakers that I ever heard talk in personal development. And one of the lessons, and a lot of you guys have heard me say this in the podcast before, but he was the one that basically gave me the quote that I use a lot of: build a bigger life, not a bigger lifestyle. And when I met him back in 2011, that's basically how I began to lead my life. I applied everything that I learned from him into my life. And that is what helped me get into real estate, build passive income, build a portfolio, and be able to help other people as well. So that was one of the things. And then later he breaks down the different types of freedoms. Ward, can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Absolutely. So Adam broke down the different types of freedom. And of course, the one that we're all familiar with is financial independence, which is really time freedom, right? When you build up enough passive income to cover your monthly expenses. However, he broke it down a step further and he really kind of went into the different levels of freedom. There's more than just financial independence or time freedom. He talked about relationship freedom and service freedom, two of which just kind of blew my mind because I've never thought of that next level to financial independence. And again, it goes all into build a bigger life, not a bigger lifestyle. Diego, if you wouldn't mind just kind of jumping into like the relationship freedom and the service freedom. I thought you did a really good job explaining it. Would love to hear your thoughts on that more.
Yeah. And we have to go a little bit above that too, because to break it down, it goes the money freedom, time freedom, relationship freedom. So once you have your time back, right, there's a difference between being rich and being wealthy. Rich people may not have the time. They just have a lot of money, or maybe they are earning a lot. They are rich, quote unquote, on essentials, on things that, like, they might have a super nice car, but they may have a lot of liabilities. They're just rich on paper. Mm-hmm. But then you become wealthy with time freedom. Once you have time freedom, you can evolve later into the relationship freedom, where you have time to build your network, just because now you can get to know different people. You can have more time with your family, more time with either your peers or other investors, and that builds a level of relationships. Then you get into service freedom, which is the part that you can actually, this is where you can focus on giving back and servicing others once you've reached a level of everything else. Because now when money is irrelevant, you begin to actually be able to go into a life where you can give back, because now you don't have that whole concern of money. Right. So that's one of the best ways to explain the relationship, and then going into the service freedom. And service freedom is something that a lot of people can do. You don't have to do that later. You can start having some of that freedom, but really when money becomes irrelevant, that's when you can really begin to have the freedom to do everything that you want.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think the other really cool thing about that too is the way he breaks it down. It's money freedom, time freedom, relationship freedom, then service freedom. That shows that the end goal is actually service freedom. It is the ability to give back and really help other people. And I think that's such an important thing to keep in mind, because I think, everyone here in Rat Race, that is our end goal. It's to provide as much value and help other people as much as we can. So really kind of looking at the bigger picture and say, hey, why am I chasing financial freedom, this money freedom? In the end, 3 steps, down the line here, it's really just to be able to give back to others. And I think that point was really driven home well and effectively by Adam.
Cool. Yeah. And then the next thing that he talked about was the program called Shred My Mortgage. And that is one of the things that can help people pay off their mortgage faster. So instead of paying off a mortgage in 30 years, you can do it in about 7 or 10 years. And that's by and you guys definitely have to hear him talk about it, or check out the shredmethod.com to learn more about it. But it's basically getting a HELOC, getting a home equity line of credit in your house. And that becomes what you can do to pay off your mortgage faster, so that you're paying simple interest instead of an amortized interest. And it gets a little bit complicated, but the idea is that all of the income that you're making from your job goes off to pay off the HELOC, so that you can have, because your expenses are coming are getting paid from the HELOC, not your credit cards, or well, not your checking account. You can use your credit cards to accrue points, and then your HELOC is paying for those credit cards, but anything that's left can go to pay down the mortgage of your house. And then as you're coming in with more income, the income pays off that portion of the HELOC, and then you repeat it every single month. And the cool part is about the shred method is that the software actually tells you how to allocate the money, what to do with that money, and gives you the freedom to actually be able to be like, okay, do I want to pay off my mortgage in 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, whatever. And then you just have to commit to that program. So that was really cool. That's one of the reasons too why Adam's first presentation was really good, is because it broke down the opportunities where people can actually become your own bank. Because then later, once you pay off the mortgage and you do have a home equity line of credit, you can just begin to write checks for other investment properties, for other investments, not just houses, but other things. So it was really cool.
Awesome. And the other thing too there, which I didn't realize was as significant, but actually really understanding the amortization schedule of your mortgage and understanding that the first 20 years of your monthly payments are pretty much going to interest.
A lot begins to go into interest.
A lot of it's going to interest. So you're not actually significantly building down the equity that you may think you're building in the first 20 years. And by doing this, you're essentially jumping the clock by 20 years, and you can pay off your mortgage in 7 years. That's been done. And there are other Rat Race members that have been able to gain $70,000, $80,000 in equity in their home in just a matter of months. So the strategy, it works. And it's definitely, again, understand the amortization schedule, understand the money that's potentially on the table. And we highly suggest really kind of digging into this strategy, because it can be it can give you a lot of power paying off your mortgage quickly.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, everything is using the equity of your home. So, well, cool. So then we had David Osborne that same night at the event. And David Osborne, he is one of the elders of the mastermind that I belong to with GoBundance. So GoBundance was, I found myself in Osborne's living room in Steamboat, Colorado, when I was 23 years old. So I shared a little bit on that story about how he's been my mentor for the last 7 years, and me being part of GoBundance, at first being like a volunteer, then working, like taking action on everything that they told me to do. Their mentorship has been great. So I was very fortunate to have him share the stage and share with everybody in Rat Race the lessons that he has given me, that I've heard from him for years, to finally be able to have 120 people be able to hear his story, break down how he tracks his goals, and how he's built the net worth that he has right now of close to 200 million. That's like 200 million. And he told us that he's on his path to becoming a billionaire. So imagine just being in that room. And when I met David, he was worth 40 million. So to now seeing him evolve as I have evolved has been huge. One of the things that I took note is the importance of like leveraging your time, but knowing what's important in your life, so that you can take action and potentially delegate or ignore some other things that are not important, and you prioritize in the most important things. So he mentioned one of the things that he does is he writes down every day he writes down 7 things that he needs to do technically, and then he makes sure that he does the top 3 and then ignores the rest. And the rest can either be done by him later, pass it on to another day, or see how he can delegate it to others, so that other people can do it, not just him.
So, definitely, and really kind of diving into that, write down your top 7 things to do, and then do the top 3 yourself, and then delegate. And something that's so important is realizing when you are delegating and you're building out your team, you're leveraging that additional resource. And he really talked about how you can leverage, there's so many different types of leverage. You can leverage capital, you can leverage technology, you can leverage social content, you can leverage human resources through time and employees and building out a team. And seeing how, he implements that leverage off of his daily to-do list just shows how big a part of leverage is in his life. And it shows how big of a piece that is and how it impacted his success as well.
Yeah, for sure. So then he talked about air game and ground game. So one of the things in that is that the air game is something that a lot of people don't put focus on because they're not really thinking about it. Everybody just goes with their routine of like, they go to work. So they wake up, they go to work, then they get home, they go to happy hour, they watch TV, and then they do it again. And like they're just in that rat race, right? A lot of people never take the time to actually look at their life from the air game side of thing. And that is by looking at it from the satellite view, as if you were freaking 30,000, 50,000 feet, right? Like just seeing your life and then seeing how you play as an actor sort of thing. Seeing how you go by your day to day, what are the things that you're doing, what are the things that you're prioritizing, your routine. And in that, you should analyze what is working and what is not working. One of the things that he mentioned is like, and this is something that I'm going to start applying into my life too, is he mentioned 10 minutes a day. I would want to do it I would personally want to do it 1 hour a week and it can be on a Sunday or on a Monday, where I analyze the air game. Like I analyze my future week and my past week from an air game perspective.
Definitely. And I think kind of like going on that a little bit more with air game versus ground game, how do you know when you're playing air game versus ground game? I think another thing that he talked about, which is really interesting, was talking about clarity. He brought up, which we'll touch in a moment, having clarity and understanding your 25-year vision. Where are you going to be in 25 years? What are you going to be doing? What kind of what is your body fat percentage? How many times are you going to work out a year? Literally, it got that specific. Yeah. And by having that 25-year vision, you're actually able to look back now and say, hey, am I playing air game or ground game? Am I doing the things that need to be done on a consistent daily basis so I can actually reach that 25-year goal? I thought that blew my mind.
Yeah, it was really cool because you can see that the level of his success when he was talking about his goals, and we're going to explain here the 8 different areas that he tracks his goals. But it was just really interesting to see that because of those things, because of how he analyzes the ground game, the air game, the habits, and he had a 25-year vision written out in his journal. Like the clarity that comes from somebody that does that is great, because you actually get to look back in your life and be like, okay, if that is my 25-year vision, what do I need to do every single day? And some people cannot get to that just by focusing on their ground game. You have to look at it from the air game perspective.
Totally.
So the 8 things, the 8 different areas that he tracks his goals, just to explain it here for everybody, is relationship and family, physical/health, contribution/spiritual, lifestyle and adventure, your environment, financial goals, and business goals. So those are the 8 different areas. And you want to make sure that as you're writing those goals, that they are SMART goals. So things that you can track. Don't just say, I want to read more. Don't say, I want to read more in 2022. Say, I want to read 12 books. So one a month. And then you can get even deeper on that if you wanted to, is I want to read 10 minutes a day or 1 chapter a day. And that's going to get you to your goals faster. And that's something that you can actually track.
Absolutely. And then going with that, talking about tracking, knowing your goals and your KPIs, you also need an accountability partner. And that was something that he had definitely a few funny anecdotes where he was saying, he's younger, he's, in his, mid 20s, early 30s grinding. And his accountability partner was one of his good friends. And he would talk about how they would get on top of one another, how they'd push one another, and how that really forced him to stay accountable. And how, yes, it was a friend, but he was an accountability partner first. Mm-hmm. And he did say, he mentioned in his speech that if it wasn't for that one person, he would not be at the level he is at today. So it shows how important accountability is at every stage of your journey.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things that he mentioned in tracking the goals, just as a tool, was the Atomic Habits journal. And yes. And it's crazy because he's had his journals, because I've known him for 7 years. For the last 7 years, I've seen how he's had his journals and things about where he writes about businesses, about his goals, how he's tracking. And it's been crazy to see that those small things, by tracking his goals in a deeper level with accountability, that is key, has created the wealth that he's been able to create, the life that he's been able to have. So it's Absolutely. Really cool. The Absolutely. Last thing that he shared was that for me was really important, because you would think that at his level of being worth almost 200 million, is that he has a lot of confidence, and that he knows so much that he doesn't have doubt, right? And he mentioned that, look, everybody has doubts. Even he has doubts, but he's been managing, because doubt is something that you cannot turn off. But he said that you can manage it by just turning it down. Turn down the doubt and have your courage on, so that you can take action in spite of that doubt or in spite of that fear.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. The other thing he mentioned too in that point was focusing on the potential upside. Don't focus on what can go wrong. Focus on, if this goes well, how is it going to affect my life? And look forward to those aspects. And of course, as always, mitigate your risk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, the other speaker was Mr. Jason Drees. And Jason Drees, he is a coach. He happened to be one of my coaches in 2021. And it's been awesome, because he shared a couple of things, and he's been a guest here on this podcast in the past too. So I think he was on episode 6 or 7. I don't remember right now, but basically one of the quotes that he shared is that success is like, a lot of people focus on getting to success, right? It's like, hey, I want to be successful. This is what I'm going to do to achieve success. But then he broke it down, and this challenged me when I first heard it, was, what if success is the starting point, is not the destination? Like, if success is the starting point, and now you have all this knowledge, you've achieved everything that you thought success was, what if now you begin to, like, your life, what, like, the purpose is of your life? And when I heard that, I was like, holy crap, because in my eyes, I've achieved what I think, like, what I wanted to achieve, right? Like, of course, there's a lot more growth that's coming for me and stuff like that. But when I was 20 years old, let's say, if I look at my life now, and then I look back and I ask Diego Corzo, and like, as a 20-year-old, I'd be like, do you consider me successful? And it's like, I would say yes, right? But then in hearing that, is more from the perspective of, if that's the starting point, what can happen? And now I'm like, holy crap, I'm just getting started.
Definitely. No, that hearing that definitely changed my mentality. And it also made me realize, again, going back to clarity, if success is just the starting point, you have to know exactly what it is. So again, it goes back to clarity, and then also realizing that the real purpose, your real purpose here in the world just begins when you've hit your own personal successes.
Yeah, no, so that was cool. And then the last thing that he mentioned was the difference that a lot of people think that once you have the right mindset, then you can take action, right? But he said that there's one layer even above, which is your frame. And your frame is determined by the frequency that you have. And I thought that was really cool, because I'm a big believer that the frequency gets to determine like if you have a positive frequency. Like there are some people that if you go into a room, right, you know that if you leave that, are you more positive, or you're like, holy crap, like this person, just by having conversations, like he brings my energy down because he's so negative, or he or she, whatever, just talks about these things that are not on the positive side, right? There are some people that you know that you go and talk to and you're like, holy crap, this is, every time that I speak with this person, I leave with more energy. And at the end of the day, that is the frequency that you have around you, and that is a frequency that not just portrays or like that can impact other people, but it's like, what if you're going in the right frequency, taking action the right way, that is what's going to help you get the right mindset to act in the right, to have the right mindset that you can then later take the right actions.
And the other interesting thing that he mentioned as well, which kind of goes along with that, is strategy is irrelevant if you're not aligned with the right frequency. Notice how it goes: frame, mindset, action. Strategy is those actionable steps to achieve your goals. And that's literally the last thing. So again, if you're not out there adding more energy, adding more energy into the world, bringing the positive vibes, you're hurting yourself.
Yeah. And it's really important to get into the right, like align yourself with the frequency that you want to achieve with your goals, right? Yes. Because if you're not with that frequency, you're not going to achieve those goals. So yeah, that is all about Jason Drees. His was very, very important because I feel like the tips that he shared definitely has allowed me also, but also like all of the people that went to the conference to be aligned in the right frequency so that they can take action and achieve all of their 22 goals. So
absolutely.
Yeah, it was good. Then we had Sarah King as one of the speakers. That was on a Saturday. And she shared a little bit about her story and how she went from being more from the mindset of Dave Ramsey, right? Being more of like, hey, I'm going to just use, like, I don't like credit cards, went from like, I'm not going to leverage the credit cards, I'm just going to use cash using the envelope system, to basically going a little bit more on the route of more Robert Kiyosaki, because for Dave Ramsey, it's like all debt is bad, right? So she shared about the changing her mindset from thinking that all debt is bad to there's a difference between good debt and bad debt. And the Dave Ramsey mentality, it's something that is also a little bit about how I got started in the beginning, because I went through Financial Peace University and all of that stuff. But it was more of like, okay, this is good to track my numbers, right? Because in the book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, he doesn't teach you about it. Like, he doesn't give you any tools. He just shares a mindset. He doesn't give you a how. But with Dave Ramsey, it shows you if you track your finances, if you stick within a budget, then you're able to achieve your financial goals from the perspective. But then Robert Kiyosaki comes in and takes it at a different level. So she shared a little bit about the importance of tracking your finances, tracking your net worth, so that you know what are the things that you want to do, how you want to invest, and so forth. She mentioned about not having buying the right liabilities and like having a good job. And then she also shared her story on how she had multiple properties, and then after that, how the process of her being divorced and now starting over and going from zero, so going from many properties to zero to then now she has 4 freaking properties as a single mom, which is super inspiring. It's like excuses was not an option for her, and how she's house hacking now. So yeah, it was just an incredible story, and a lot of people were inspired.
It was absolutely an amazing story. And I loved how she really kind of broke down, the liabilities column, and that, a car, a lot of people, for example, feel that they need a car, and there are actually a lot of strategies to getting a car without taking on that liability. Can you have a company car? Can you bring it up with your boss? How can you negotiate that into your compensation? That's just one of the many. Another huge tip that she had: if you're going to lease a car, that is the way to make the dealership and the actual car brand the most money possible, which means that you're going to be losing the most amount of money. Mm-hmm. So just be very, very aware of that. Getting a used car, and then maybe, taking some of the money you save and buying some real estate can really pay dividends in the long term.
Yeah, no, that's true. That is true. All right. So then we had my brother, Gonzalo Corzo, of course. He's 25 years old. Well, he's 26 now. And he shared on his journey of building his wholesale business. And he had an incredible story of how he has gone his business, like turned his business from zero in 2017, when he started with his business partner, Dom, to in 2021, ending the year grossing $3.9 million. $3.9 million. Imagine that in wholesale fees. It's freaking amazing. But even though that sounds amazing, he shared all of the struggles, right? And he literally, you're eating crap for like all these years, right? He said the other word, but he's literally is like, look, in the beginning, if you want to build a business, a real business, in the beginning, you have to reinvest back into your business, because his goal is not to just have a $1 million company or a $3 million company. His goal is to turn it into $100 million company. And with that comes with a lot of sacrifices. And so that was one of the things that he shared. And one of my favorite parts too is like the importance. Well, he shared, look, there were people making more money than he was in the beginning of
his own company.
Yeah, in his own company, right? And he went from, look, I went from making 0 to 30,000 a year, then 30 or 40,000 the next year, then 600,000, then 60, right? He went from 40,000. That's what he was taking home and reinvesting it back into his business, to where now a lot of people see his success. And in 2021, he's going to take home around 650,000, but it went from making 30, 40, 60, 60,000 to 10x that. And it was because of the fact of eating crap for a few years, multiple years, because he's now on year 7, I think, or 6 of doing the wholesale business. And he has 28 employees now. He's leveraged the right way, and he's building a business that in the future, that's what one of the quotes that we have here is like, grind to build a business that doesn't need you when you're gone. So basically having the ability to, what happens if you just leave your business in May and you go to the Bahamas for the whole summer, right? And then you come back in September. Did you lose money? Did you break even, or did you make money? Your business should be making you money whenever you leave. So that was one of the things that we learned.
And the other thing that I want to touch on as well, that Gonzalo just really made a great point on, is understanding where you are in Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow quadrant. You are either an employee, you are self-employed, you own a business or you have a business, or you're an investor. Mm-hmm. And understanding each of those quadrants and what roles you play and how your time is spent in each of those quadrants is incredibly important. So again, grind to build a business that doesn't need you when you are gone. Really look at the cash flow quadrant. And if you have a business right now, ask yourself, if I leave, where am I? And if the business is not growing, you're in the self-employed box, which it sounds super scary. So definitely something to look at and be aware of.
For sure. The other speaker was on Instagram. She's at Lattes and Leases, Soli Cayetano. She is 23 years old, and she shared on how she started investing just a few years ago, and now she has a portfolio of over 20 doors. So it was very exciting hearing her story, and she shared a lot on the lessons learned as she's built that portfolio, especially investing from out of state. which is really important. She's been able to have this, she lives in California, and she was able to buy multiple properties in Ohio, going from a couple of single families to then later, I think she got a 10-plex or something like that. That's how she was able to scale, how she raised private money, the lessons of not having the right, like, she expected some things to cost X much, and then the bids come in and it's a lot more. So like the lessons there from that perspective. And she mentioned that failure is the opportunity to start again, right? But this time in a smarter way. At the end of the day, it's super important how you perceive things. The meaning that you give to things is much more important than the actual situation. So imagine that instead of seeing failures as failures, like some people will see it and say, you know what, I quit. I'm not going to do real estate anymore. This failure I cannot take. But seeing it from like, okay, well, this is an opportunity for me to learn. And I know that if I do it again, I'm going to do it in a smarter way. And
the other thing too, that her ability to only do a few deals and then scale so quickly, the raising private money, she's raised over $1 million, and she's really just dominated this market. She's taken on huge construction projects, and really seeing the success that she has with all of her burrs shows that she's taking her advice. Failure is the opportunity to start again, but this time just a little bit more intelligently. She's crushing it, and it's very clear that she's learning from her mistakes and just going on forth with a lot of enthusiasm as she continues to crush it.
For sure. Then we had David Grabner. David Grabner was sharing all about how he's been, well, he shared his story, but then he also shared on how he created the portfolio that he has now, how first he started investing with his dad in a form of like just buying a couple of duplexes, quadplexes while he was working as a missionary. I believe it was in a country in Africa, and how he basically was able to partner up with his dad to grow a portfolio and then something happened with his family, and he had to come back to the States. And as he came back, he basically look, now is my opportunity to scale this. And now he's gone from just a couple of duplexes and quadplexes to getting into multifamily, but also commercial spaces. As like, I think he owns like, it's not a gym, but it's one of those more huge commercial spaces. And how he shared the story of how one deal he had under contract, he was going to close on it at 11 million. And it appraised at 14 million. So how he made 3 million basically at the strike of a pen at closing. So he shared all about that, and how starting small in the beginning definitely helped his success as he's getting into bigger deals.
And just kind of looking at his as the way he's been able to scale, it shows that your first few years, if you're able to, again, learn from your successes and then really double down where you're having success, you're able to grow not at a linear rate, but an exponential rate. The other thing that David, that I just loved hearing from his speech, was talking about really how he's reached true service freedom. He's, as a real estate investor, I have never spoken to someone that was so focused on giving back, and it completely changed my why for real estate investing, to be completely honest. And I hope to follow his path very soon in my journey and give back the way he's been able to. Diego, you want to touch on a little bit how he's giving back right now from all his real estate success?
Yeah, so he's been giving back by giving houses to either his tenants or homeless people, which is super inspiring. So that now he's also able to help people be like, okay, you're a renter, but how can I help you own a house just like this? And it can even be that house too. So he puts them from the perspective so that the renters can become homeowners, can build equity, can learn about finances and all of that stuff.
Right. And then with that, the other thing that I really liked that he mentioned was be bold and act now. Learn from your mistakes, do your research, but when it's time to pull the trigger, do it and believe in yourself, because you can absolutely accomplish it.
Yeah, no, it was definitely an amazing story. Great tips on how to scale and think at a larger scale. So then we had Steve Rosenberg. Steve Rosenberg, of course, he was the last speaker of the conference, and it was amazing. The energy. If you don't follow him on Instagram, definitely give him a follow, because he shared a bit of his story, but just like the energy that he brought and the mindset part of things, of being able to understand that at the end of the day, no matter what situation may have happened to you, that your mindset, and like I mentioned earlier, like the meaning that you give to things, can definitely change the trajectory of your life. So he shared his story about how back in 2001, when 9/11 happened, how he lost his job completely, and how he had to reinvent himself because of the fact that he couldn't fly planes anymore. Right. So he shared a little bit on that, and how he still has that now as his job, but he was able to invest in properties, then later grow his portfolio a lot, to then later start a property management company, to selling part of his property management company. Now he got acquired, and how he's been able to continue to create a lot of impact, and still be an investor and a business owner.
Absolutely. And he brought up three main problems to overcome if you're starting out this real estate journey as an investor. And just to run through them really quickly, I thought the first one was be able to identify a good deal versus a bad deal. Second one was to overcome the belief and the fear of money, really have an abundance mindset. And then three, support wealth that supports your lifestyle. Again, it goes back to knowing your numbers, but if those are three problems that you can overcome, real estate is going to treat you well. And those are definitely three things to focus on.
Yeah, exactly. And with that came the things that he shared in order to understand that, right? Like whether it's a good deal or a bad deal, right, is understanding that the good deal must fit your goals. Because it can be a bad deal for me, for example, if I'm looking at it from the perspective that this doesn't fit my goals.
Right.
But to give you an example, back in the day, I was not looking at flips because my goal was not to flip properties. My goal was to build as much cash flow as I could through investing in properties for passive income. Right. So from that perspective, flips, I would say, hey, that can be a good deal, but it's a bad deal for me with the perspectives that I have of how it fits into my goals. So that is very important. Understanding that a good deal must fit into your goals. Pillar number 2 was that there's always a way to make a deal happen. So that basically for me, and the way that he explained it, was that when you are buying that property, understand that the different exit strategies that can happen, right? So if I'm buying property solely for, if I'm buying, let's say, a good deal, right, that I think that it's a good deal for me, is understanding when I see that there is a way to make it happen. One of them, as I mentioned, exit strategies can be like, okay, will this be a good property to house hack? Will this be a good property to short-term rental? Or maybe I just want this long-term rental. But seeing it from the perspective of exit strategies definitely allows you to see, okay, what will happen in a downturn? Like seeing it from those perspectives.
And I think another thing that his mindset and his energy, again, to bring that back, is he was so, I mean, he was so enthusiastic and just brought so much positive energy to the room. Again, there's always a way to make a deal happen. No matter what roadblock you have, there is a way to make it happen. And the only roadblock that stands in front of you is your creativity or limited thinking.
Exactly. Yeah. And the last pillar that he mentioned was that REI at the end of the day is the ultimate wealth goal, right? Because at the end of the day, is that passive income that allows you to build wealth as you're growing your equity. But like we mentioned earlier, it's like being wealthy in all areas of life, right? It's not just the rich part. of the money, but it's more the wealth goal of having that time freedom, relationship freedom, and the service freedom. So I thought that was really cool. And that was just a great way to end the Rad Race to FI first goal setting conference. So it was awesome.
It was an incredible event. And I think all the speakers that came out, thank you again to everyone that came out. You know, we had over 100 people there, 100 attendees that flew all around the country. And to think that, you know, we got a bunch of positive feedback and we're already seeing people take action. And there's nothing that feels better than seeing people, you know, come together and really, you know, move mountains on their own personal goals.
Yeah.
Great event.
Yeah, it was awesome. And we're definitely going to be doing one at the end of 2022. More than likely will be in December. So be on the lookout, guys, for more on that. We're going to be bringing amazing speakers again, and for them to be able to share their journey, share the lessons learned, and inspire, like basically leave the conference with a little bit more of inspiration. But also the reason why we do it at the end of the year is so that you can leave with actionable steps, because inspiration, motivation will wear off. But if you're building the right habits, if you have the right discipline and you have a strong enough why you want to achieve certain goals that you wrote down, that is what it's actually going to be able to help you achieve it in the year 2022 and 2023 if we do, or when we do the one at the end of this year. So yeah, thank you very much again to all of the speakers, because it was awesome. And Ward too, you were an asset to this event, because you came in, you started working with me back in October, November, and with the event planning in December, like you definitely helped a huge amount. So thank you for that.
My pleasure. It was an incredible event, and I can't wait to see our even bigger event next December. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ward, for your time. I know that Felipe he's going to be hearing this podcast interview and be able to also to remember all of the badass tips that we got, the content, the speakers, like there's just so many notes, right? That we got from the speakers. So yeah, it was just an incredible event. And Ward, as I mentioned, thank you for your time, and we will catch you in future episodes. And I know, Ward, that once you buy your next couple of properties, your next STRs, we'll definitely be working on having you here be part of the show, so that the audience can learn a little bit more from you.
Awesome. I look forward to it. Thanks for having me on and talk about the event.
Cool. Thank you, Ward. Take care.
Thanks, Diego.
The Rat Race to FI podcast, where we discuss money, mindset, real estate investing, and ways to achieve financial independence. Whether you are a rookie or a veteran needing new ideas for investing or creating side hustles, you're in the right place.